I gotta say, of all the IPs that I haven't listened to music from, Zelda's the one that surprises me personally the most because I feel like it's the one that I would like the most. However, I have to admit that I've only played basically 2 Zelda games from start to finish. Zelda Oracle of Seasons and Zelda Link's Awakening. Sorry, my brain just like totally had a brain fart there. Today we're going to be doing a crash course. I'm going to be crashing through a bunch of Zelda tracks. Some I'll probably know and some I've never heard before. I'm going to let the tracks play out, and then after each track I'm going to talk about it and yeah, see where we land. Here we go. First up is the Great Fairy Mountain from Zelda Ocarina of Time. Oh, of course, yeah. Nice counter harmony. I like the upright bass in there too. Boom. Boom. I mean, really, one of the most incredible things about that piece is how many different layers of instruments there are and how they each come in when they come in and how they support that main sort of upper register harp portion of that. There's the upright bass, there's the second lower voiced harp, there's the accent that happens at certain parts of it. And I think ultimately what I find really cool about the Great Fairy's Fountain, and I know that many of you know this theme incredibly well, and there are people on YouTube itself who have analyzed the absolute crap out of that piece. But what I think from the perspective of an opera singer is the fact of the safety within that sound. The arpeggiation in there and the ostinato, like there's a real quality of peace. There's a stillness in that movement that really helps it feel like an embrace or a hug that we don't often get in other games, you know. And it's funny because even if you think of Resident Evil, like let's think of like the save room themes. Those themes are not comforting, right? It's a similar sensation though. It's a similar safe space. And yet, this is one of the safe space sounds that feels most actually safe. I find it kind of a fascinating piece of music because it almost feels like a warm hug, like whether it's from a sibling or a loved one or what have you, a friend. There's protection in that sound, and part of that is because of that gorgeous harp. It's a gorgeous piece, isn't it? Now, I for sure have never played Zelda 2, The Adventure of Link. This is Zelda 2, The Adventure of Link dungeon theme. I mean, maybe I've heard this before because it's like in the lexicon of Zelda. Well, let's listen. Oh, clapping. I never heard this. Oh, wait. Just a little bit of tension. Dum, dum. I love the space. There's the... Whoa! And there's home. That's cool. Shadan dum da dum 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 da dum dum da dum. Yeah, I mean, fascinatingly enough, what's cool about this piece is the fact that we have these markers. I find that really fun where that's like the center of each section. Ta-da, dan, chan, do-dong. Shadam dum dum da dum. And what's cool about that, motivically to me and melodically, ba pya da ba pya ba pya pya ba pya pya pya. That really is a feeling of mystery. Now, a dungeon theme, so obviously that's a moment of exploration. It's dark, it's dank. I love that word, by the way, dank. It's a dank cave. Is that the right way to use it? I don't know. There's a feeling of it's damp, that there's, you don't know where you're going to turn, even though obviously like it sort of, I mean, and how many different roguelikes have been made based around like Zelda dungeons. I mean, like countless of them at this point, where you never know what's going to happen the next door you go in. The feeling of that is mystery. The feeling of that is discovery. The feeling of that is like stress, even though the music still has a degree of like, I'm Link, I'm an adventurer, I can go from point A to point B, I have a sword, I have a shield, I can take care of this, right? So we don't lose sight of that. It's not like so oppressive that it makes us feel like we're going to die. But it does feel like, holy shit, I don't know what's in the next room, so I better be careful. And then you go into the room and this is what you get. And like, well, that could be anything. It could be tentacles, it could be a monster, it could be a trap, it could be anything. It could even just be like a different room. And it's cool how that's how we create a sense of scale within the NES graphics and framing of the experience, right? And so the music does a great job of adding emphasis and adding tension to the storyline that wouldn't otherwise necessarily be there if the music wasn't this or wasn't included. It's also super short, and so again, we're talking about earworms and getting locked in with something. I mean, I can sing it back to you. I've only heard this piece once. Da da dum da 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 ba da 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 da. Like, that's the cool thing about melody at this time period in video game music. The melody was the thing. It's the thing that carries you as a player through the experience. And that cannot be understated, how important melody is to the history of Zelda. I mean, like the history of this particular franchise. Now, yeah, Mario's got it, Sonic's got it, Mega Man's got it. Yeah, of course. But with Zelda, there's always that degree of adventure at every turn. And I find that to be extremely cool. And like, I think the reason why it sustains itself and it's like remained a part of the lexicon, on top of being a good game, you know, it's not just nostalgia. Next up is The Legend of Zelda: A Link to the Past, Dark World. Oh man, listen to the trombones back there. Oh! Da, ba, ba, da, da. Whoa. Da-da-da-da. The descending scale, the descending repeated notes. And then there's the loop. Don't you find that interesting? I'm going to talk during the loop, but don't you find that interesting? Don't you feel how the rhythm of that piece? Now, yes, it's strings, but do you notice how like there's an emphasis? It's almost like when you emphasize syllables, right? It's the same thing with music. We're putting tenuti over that, and tenuto is just like, it's literally like a triangle that goes over the note. It's meant to be like struck. It's not yada yada yada. Do you feel how that like loses some of the impetus versus pa pa yada pa da ram? Don't you notice that has way more gusto to it? And also, I think it hits home this idea of like action, adventure, taking charge, way more gumption. Adventure is at the crux of every Zelda game experience, right? It's the journey, maybe also the destination, but predominantly it's the journey from point A to point B. It's the stuff in between. Now, I'm not talking like in an open world sense, although we obviously get that with Breath of the Wild and Twilight Princess. But what I mean is like going there and doing the thing. That's the part that's important, you know. And I think that musically, that really does a great job of sending that idea home. Like, you got to go on that adventure. And then, isn't that cool? Like the counter melody. Listen to this. Listen to this second. And that's the key about active listening. And I'm going to go on my active listening spiel. I do this basically in every single video. But active listening is not just listening to the melody line and not just thinking about how it feels, but to actually then be like, oh, do you hear how the bass is doing this? Do you hear how the second violin is adding to the first violin? Isn't it cool how the harmony increases the feeling of like adventure and enthusiasm that the like main melody has? Without the second harmony, this would just be a boring, repetitive piece. And instead what we end up with is like a feeling of like, oh yeah, that harmony is actually like highlighting the importance of that adventure. Don't you see? Like, I hope that that's clear. Like, that's your job. If you want it, right? I mean, technically it's my job, but it's your job to also, when you're sitting back and listening to stuff, if you really want to deep dive into it, I'm not saying you need to know the chord structures. I mean, I think the chords are important and fun to know, but ultimately that's the mathematical aspects of music. We also need to connect the mathematical to the emotional. And music is one of these things where, you know, not to go on too long of a rant, but fuck it, you're here. Emotion is the driving force. Good composition, very important. The mathematical aspects of quarter notes and half notes and chord structure, very important. Combine the two, that's music. And that's the part that's really exciting. What a great piece. And again, the dark world. So it's like a bleak space. And we're still trudging through it, trying to get to the other side, trying to conquer Ganon, trying to save Zelda, trying to save the planet. Next up is Tall, Tall Heights from The Legend of Zelda Link's Awakening. Now, this is the Game Boy version, so I have heard this because I played the Switch remaster. God, I love that theme so much. Oh, I love a variation. It's like a variation on a theme. Wow. I love how crazy the left hand is going. A little bit of samba in there. Oh, key change. Oh my goodness. Yeah. I love the warmer part here. I love the trill. Oh man, that's cool. This must be a reset. Ding. No, it's not. No, it is. No, it's not. Man, that lower register. Wow. I could listen to that all day. Like, that's 3 minutes. That was like the shortest 3 minutes of my life. Like, I could literally sit down and listen to that all day. Ever so slight variations like that are divine, I think. And I think the reason why is because, you know, we all know but then when you take it and go that is a different emotional emphasis, isn't it? Shifting it up, shifting it down. Those are all different emotional emphasis. And this is the thing that's so, I mean, like, I don't need to go into great detail about that piece. Like, yeah, it's adventure, it's spirited. There's a couple little cool things where the samba kicks in, and then also the way that we're going, but again, the cool thing about music is that each individual component of a piece has different emotional stakes depending on where it is in the register. And I find that incredibly fascinating, because whether it's a lower version, a higher version, a slightly different melody, the way, you know, the way that the bass is emphasizing certain things, the way that the harmony plays into it, like all of that within a given piece changes the emphasis emotionally. Man, did I love that piece. Hyrule Field for The Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time. That's such a similar... But there too, don't you hear the punch? First of all, I like how it's ever so slightly. You think it's gonna go kind of like Tall Heights. But here, it's interesting how we're getting the hit. Isn't that cool? Listen to this. Listen to this. Bum 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 bum. Right there. Bum bum bum. Wake up, bitch! You know what I mean? It's almost like Hyrule Field saying, come on, bring on the adventure. And again, all of these themes kind of bring on adventure. So in a way, emotionally, it almost feels a little one note in a way. Not one note in like one note being played, but one note in the fact that like all of it stems for like a feeling of pursuit of adventure. Also, something that's really worth noting is how emphatically melodic these pieces have been. All of these pieces have had such a degree of melody. And admittedly, wasn't that a big complaint of Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom? That like they were kind of a little bit too ambient except for key moments. But honestly, like with a space that big, doesn't the ambiance fill it out better than just having incessant melody over and over and over? It's a really interesting discussion that we can definitely get into. I'd love to know what your thoughts are in the comments, but for me, it's like, I may not love Breath of the Wild or Tears of the Kingdom soundtracks as much because they're sort of like loose and kind of play at certain key moments, but like, it's interesting how the history of Zelda's music, how melodically emphatic it is. It's the same notes. You think it's going to go up and do the Zelda theme. Wonderful harmony there. Bum, ba, 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 ba. Ah, that's interesting. Going down like that is... And then it resets. And there's the peacefulness of the fields. Bright green Hyrule Fields. That's playful. Maybe you're throwing a chicken. It's very brief though. Oh, it is a spin on the motif. Oh, that's really nice. And then you see Zelda's castle in the distance, and that's where we get the brass. Bum, ba, ba. Oh, there it is. Danger. Wow. What a heavy track. I didn't expect this. This is actually dangerous. Brah, 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 brah. And that's like wiping your brow and being like, oh, that was rough. Heralding victory. Dun, dun, dun. Dun, dun. There's regality in that sound. Again, heralding something. Wow, big low brass there. I love how bright that is. Oh, the harp is a nice touch. That's pretty. It's like the morning dew. Ah, yeah. Nice pits there. Pizzicato. Not armpits. The English horn. Nice resolution. What a nice spin on that theme, man. I love the brightness back. Yeah, I mean, wow. So obviously this is clearly a dynamic piece that this plays. This is the full track kind of laid out, but obviously certain sections play at certain moments. That makes sense. I think what's amazing about it is that it retains the sort of motivic idea, regardless of what's happening, whether it's the morning dew, whether it's the combat, whether it's the rolling fields, whether it's the chickens. There's something here for every emotional context, and I think that that's the part that really stands out to me. And what's also really cool about this is the fact that we basically, like the previous track, we still find a way to connect this feeling of adventure with a bunch of different emotions here. It's actually like really advanced. We have the same leaps and steps, but it pivots, and so you still, because you know that song, the earworm of that song, that motif, we are able to layer it in different ways. So it's almost like it feels, you're like, yes, it's gonna give it to me, and then it does something else, and you're like, oh, I'm on a field. Okay, never mind. It's fun to play with that motivic idea and delay the expectation and deny the expectation altogether, so that the sound is like, yeah, oh, wow, okay, yeah, I'll go along with that. You know what I mean? So you like bring something new and then replace it with something else. And I find that really fun. The Legend of Zelda, Ocarina of Time, again, Kakariko Village. Oh, it's this like country, like, yeah. There's the harmonica. It's like sleepy almost. I love the undulating arpeggiation there. Da da ya do 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 do. Doubling with the ocarina and the harmonica, as if to say everyone's together. I think the upper xylophone, the upper registers, really warms it out a bit. There's the harmony. That's beautiful. It's like sitting around a fire, playing a song with your friend. Ba 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 ba. Oh! Goes up to the upper neighbor and then resolves down. Yada, yada, yada. I mean, I gotta say, like, the thing about that that's so interesting to me is that it's actually not that dissimilar to the fairy theme. That slow, peaceful, inviting, obviously not nearly as mysterious, but there is a sense of like comfort in that sound, a sense of peace, a sense of like, you know, gathering, being looked after, tended for. The delightful harmony there between the harmonica and what I would assume would be Link playing the ocarina. Like there's that sense of real balance there that is just so peaceful. I mean, a sense of like, hey, come rest your, I don't know why my brain went, come rest your yams. Take a load off of the responsibility. You know what I mean? Just like take it easy. And that's the sort of present theme, especially with the arpeggiation, with the guitar. And on top of that, I would say like one of the biggest and best things about this particular soundtrack, Zelda's soundtrack in general, is the singability. Obviously, we have that much less so in Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom, but the singability is the thing that kind of like latches itself onto you. It's really great. So here's Majora's Mask. Now, this is a game I will never play. I don't really like this kind of mechanic where like things go south and you kind of need to just like reset when things go badly. It's like my least favorite kind of mechanic. Maybe it's not that bad, but I know it's like the first iteration of this. And I know that at the time it came out, it was like a big deal. And it's also like one of the darker Zeldas along, I think, with Twilight Princess. So this is Legend of Zelda Majora's Mask, Clock Town Day 1, Day 2, Day 3, and Final Hours. Oh, that's very inviting. This feels like an overture. Oh. Oh, whoa. That was not what I thought. Very like medieval dance. People are working, but they're not like unhappy to work. Oh, I like that. Classical movement there, just descending down like that. Biaram, biaram, biaram. Feels like dancing around the maypole, kind of. Okay, so that was Clocktown Day Theme 1. Here's Day Theme 2. More arpeggiation. Faster. Interesting, okay. With the ocarina. That's funny. This feels like early morning, and that sounds like a chicken cooing. So a Link is talking to the chicken right now. It's like the fiddle sound, yeah. It's just call and response. Nice harmony there. It's sleepy. You know? Has a sleepy quality to it. The ocarina sound is really nice, though. Again, pay attention to that counter harmony there. Cool. All right, day 3 now. Whoa. Obviously danger there. And that's just tons of dissonance. Bo, bo, bo. You know, it's funny. So if obviously we have like holy shit, we gotta get this done. Oh my god, what the fuck? The moon is coming towards us. It's looking me right in the face. But what's really interesting is the fact that the moon is terrifying, and the reason why it's terrifying is because those notes in the lower register are out of the chord structure. So bo, bo, bo. The dissonance at play there really. It's just dissonance. Like, it's just dissonance. Like, but the dissonance is what causes the feeling of stress. It's so simple in its delivery, but it's so incredibly effective at actually causing a sense of discomfort and stress, which I think is really cool. I mean, we're not talking anything crazy. We're just like literally shifting the step in the lower register from, you know, tonic to the fifth. We're adding like some black keys in there. We're adding some dissonance, whether it's augmented or diminished. And that's the feeling of stress. And that's where that comes from. And obviously this pickup in tempo is like panic and what have you. Yeah, that's just playing with dissonance. Augmented and diminished chords, basically. The chords that are out of the key. Like, it feels like you're playing the wrong notes. That's right. That's wrong. Wrong. Okay, now I want to hear Final Hours. It's going to be terrible. Whoa. I didn't expect the disturbing placidity. Whoa. Oh, it's a dirge. It's a mournful piece. I like how the harpsichord tries to pop back in for that spinning thing it did in the previous tracks, but it just can't. Nice resolution there. And the harpsichord, there's a ghastliness in this, isn't there? These random sound effects to symbolize the... Wow. I absolutely love the harpsichord accent. What a random accent. And the shimmering moon is like, I don't know if the actual moon does this because I've only seen like pictures of the gameplay. I don't think I've ever actually watched like any individual play Majora's Mask, but like it feels like there's like the ozone layer, or like the protective layer of the moon, kind of as it gets closer and closer. Everyone's looking up at this thing like, oh god, like this is it, like we've got nothing left. And the harpsichord is like, no, remember the good old days. It's death. It's like looking death in the face and being like, this is it. We've lost everything. It's actually like shockingly powerful. It's really cool to see how again, the programmatic idea of like each day symbolizing something different and symbolizing fear and terror and joy and workmanship. And it's cool how these themes each indicate something very specific. So even without actual visual context, the musical context is driving that plot point forward. That's incredibly cool. So Wind Waker is probably the only Zelda game that I'm obsessed with playing that I've never played. I don't know why. I have this mystique about Wind Waker. Like I look at it from afar and I'm like, you, I really want to play you. And I just haven't been able to yet. But yeah, so this is Dragon Roost Island from the Wind Waker. That's fun. It feels islandy, of course. Oh, I heard this on a Patreon live stream. Dum, dum, da, dum, 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 dum. Absolutely love the bass there. Dum, dum, da, dum, 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 da, dum, dum, dum. I love the percussion that casts the nets. The pan flute. Bum ba bum 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 ba bum 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 ba bum bum ba da da. Nice sustaining there, sustaining the same dum ba bum 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 bum. I'm glad that repeats. What an inviting track. I mean, there's, you know what's funny is that there's ever so slightly a degree of melancholy in that. Like there's like just like the twinge of sadness and like whatever's occurred on Dragon Roost Island. Like it's like not everything is just joyful, even though that's a track that moves relatively quickly, has a pretty decent rhythm, a pretty decent tempo. There's an air of like, man, we've seen some stuff. That being said, like the movement of that is just delightful. It has a welcoming like, hey, come on in. Like, this is a safe place for you. Yeah, again, Wind Waker has this mystique. I mean, what a gorgeous piece. I would love to sit down and just listen to more Wind Waker. And realistically, I'd rather just play it and then listen to the music at the same time. Like, there's a warmth about Wind Waker's art style, all of it. Like, it sort of feels timeless. And it's definitely like the Zelda that I think I most want to experience in my lifetime, if possible. Let's check out another Hyrule field. This one is from Twilight Princess. This is the one on the Wii with the dog, right? I watched a friend play this. It seems so stupid. Not the game, but controlling Midna and Zelda and the dog with the nunchucks. Ugh, no thank you. The oboe's cool. Oh, cool. Clarinet. I love the woodiness of the clarinet. Obviously the percussion. But see, this is like so sneaky, so I don't know if we're going to get into it here, but so obviously Hyrule Field, once again, it already sounds drastically different, and yet Then they say, surprise, bitch, here's the motif, you know. Like that in and of itself right away, that triggers that, like, hey, this is Hyrule Field. You've probably been here before. Here's the motif. You know what I mean? It's a nice little callback, very Wagnerian of Zelda to do. Yeah. Little call and response there with the strings and the clarinet. Isn't it funny too that the bassoon always gets the shaft? Bassoon always is like, I'm a goofy instrument, you know, I'm really good. People have to spend all day carving reeds for me, but it still ends up always sounding goofy. Nice harmony. Little accent there with the strings. I love the percussion. Percussion has a sense of forward momentum, of going somewhere, of doing something. There's tension. It's interesting how the drum, and there's this bass, but the drum is the dominant force here. A lot more danger in this particular sound, though, isn't there? Dum 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 dum. Bum 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 bum. This pulls back. It's so interesting how this pulls back, and it like gives way to potentially something. The trumpet call and response. Love the flute and clarinet harmony there. Yeah, and the snare drum is constant. It does feel like galloping of a horse, doesn't it? Da-dum, da-dum. Oh, there it is. That's nice. That's really interesting, like with harmony and with sort of call and response and the constant presence of the snare. I'd say that it lacks a little bit of character based on, I don't know how sacrilegious it is to say that, sorry, but like compared to the Ocarina of Time, I mean, obviously it's not the same circumstances, so it makes sense. Like contextually, I totally get why it sounds the way it sounds, knowing that this is a much more serious adult moment. I like the bright quality of that Hyrule Field version of the Ocarina of Time version. I also like the sense of adventure in it. This one feels very like marched and very like with intention, very specific. The darker shades of sound kind of make it feel a little bit more generic to me. I really prefer Ocarina of Time's version. And I don't know why that is just yet, because I mean, this is like first listening. I do like the call and response to the Zelda theme and like that sort of motivic writing. It does those things incredibly well, but yeah, it doesn't land for me as much. And maybe that's just because I don't know the context. So speaking of Midna, let's check out Midna's Lament, which I do believe I've heard this before. You know, interestingly, the constant undulating of the arpeggiation and the asana, it's pretty interesting to have that be dominant, because usually, I mean, there is a melody in there, whatever, like that melody is in there, but the ostinato or arpeggiation is the thing. I'm sorry, I'm like mixing those two up right now, so I'm saying both. That quality, that's anguish. There's obviously, it's called Midna's Lament, so of course, like, she's lamenting. The repetitive motion in that is where we end up with feeling like there's nowhere else to turn. It doesn't move. It doesn't go in a different direction. It doesn't really change. It's just constant. That really is like, well, I'm backed against the wall. What can I possibly do? Maybe when the upper register comes in, it's like glimmers of hope, possibility. But in general, it really is just like, I have nothing else. You know, there's a real bleakness in that. It's amazing how the music kind of produces that by doing as little as possible while still having some melodic ideation, and by doing that arpeggiation and that ostinato playing, repeating pattern. In my brain, I wasn't sure what to expect of Midna's Lament. I was sort of mentally comparing it to Zelda's Lullaby, a much superior song based on my limited experience with Zelda's music. Zelda's Lullaby is like peak Zelda, like emotion through music to me, and using melody as the emotional, like, sort of gut punch. Whereas I felt like this one kind of meandered a little bit too much, so I felt like I didn't really grasp. Like, yes, it was sad, and you do get the sense of like loss in that, and inherently in that, but it doesn't hit as much as, I mean, again, I think this is a contextual issue, and we're listening to stuff in a vacuum, which is, you know, serving its own purpose. But I think if I was playing in context, I would definitely be more moved. The Legend of Zelda Spirit Tracks. I don't know what the hell this is. This is a Realm Overworld. What? Wait. So hold on. Spirit Tracks. There's a picture of a train. So the constant movement is definitely the train on the locomotion. What the fuck is Spirit Track? I've never heard of this game, not ever in my entire life. And I feel like I have a pretty good sense of games, even if I don't play them. Love the upper register. Very tight harmony there. That's gorgeous. I mean, okay, hold on. Before we get ahead of ourselves, I need to see what the gameplay of this game. I need to know. You become a train driver? Oh, wow. So you make a... Okay, so you know how I said earlier that Wind Waker was the only Zelda game that I felt like I must play in my lifetime? Well, cancel that, because Zelda Spirit Tracks is 1,000,000,000% actually the priority now. Just the sound of that is just delightful. And I think like, again, it's like that idea of like the sense of discovery is full on in that. First of all, like what an inventive thing to do. Like, wow. I would take that over Breath of the Wild any day of the week. We are in the open fields and getting this bright music of saying like, hey, you're driving a train, motherfucker. Like we're going over there. Make your route. Here we go. And no matter what gets in our way, we're going to be able to conquer it. Like that is awesome. Like that's so cool how the music becomes a companion for something like this. It's like, come on, the spirit of adventure is here to get us. And I think again, ultimately, that's the highlight of Zelda for me, is that there's a sense of, in every one of these tracks, more or less, there was a momentum and a feeling of like enthusiasm, you know, of like adventure, whether it's, you know, Ocarina of Time, Spirit Tracks, or everything in between. Like there's a sense of like play and discovery and possibility for adventure that can't be denied. But you know, there is one theme from Zelda that really leaves me with my heart like a heart pang every time I listen to it. Revali's theme from The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild is one of the most beautiful themes I think in video games personally. You know, there's just something about it. I don't really remember Revali as a character at all. I hate to say it. But one of the things that piece really makes me contemplate is just life itself, and the fact that we move at such a fast pace. And like, there's a sense of like wanting to slow down in that piece, of like really contemplating existence and recognizing that like life is beautiful and you know, we shouldn't take it for granted. And there's a gentility in that piece of like overcoming an obstacle and feeling like, you know, things are not so bad. And I'm really glad that things have landed the way they have, and so on and so forth. I feel an immense feeling of peace when I listen to that. And it really speaks to me on an emotional level that's really hard to describe, but there's such a softness in that. And I think ultimately Zelda's music is that it's emotional. It allows us to connect to music and also to our own feelings of, you know, adventure, possibility, whether it's going to the gym or, you know, preparing a meal or hopping in a car or whatever. Like there's a sense of like, okay, what's the day going to bring? Whereas like a piece like Revali's theme is much more reflective and much more, I don't know, it's incredibly pensive, and I love it. There's a lot more Zelda that we need to listen to, of course, and frankly, I really just don't know enough. So stay tuned for definitely more episodes of listening to Zelda music for the first time, and then hopefully I can start to introduce non-gamers to Zelda music as well, and keep the tradition of celebrating this music for as long as possible. Thanks a ton, everybody, and I'll talk to you later. Bye.